Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Tired and Thriving, a podcast recognizing just how tired and exhausted we all are while discussing ways to still thrive. I'm your host, Samantha Gray, and this week's guest is Jen.
Hi.
Jen is a special education teacher. Thank you so much for sharing time with me, Jen.
Thanks for inviting me. I've never done anything like this, so I'm pretty excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, me too. Well, so I want to start off with...
I'm running into your table already. Already off to a good start.
A great start.
Very professional.
So what gave you the passion to want to become a special education teacher?
Like, it's interesting because you knew me. We went to art school together. That's how we know each other. But like...
Oh my God, so personal.
We're diving into history. History first. But my intention was, to be an artist, fine artist. That's when I was younger and I didn't know, how hard it is. Kind of trying to figure out my place in life, working a whole bunch of jobs I hated. And, I'd go to dinner with my sister once a week, and she's a speech pathologist. She works in a school similar to the one I work at, where it's only for kids with special needs. And she would come in with am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
The most batshit stories about kids beating her up, the craziest things happening. And I'd listen to her mouth dropped, you want to do this every day? But every time I saw her, you'd hear about those crazy things, but she'd always talk about how much she loved going to work. And at the time I was doing I was working in shipping, and just all my stories were so negative. I hate work. I hate work. I hate work. And I finally quit on a whim when things got really bad. And I'm talking to her what am I going to do? And she's like, why don't you come work for me? And I'm like, there's no way I can do that. There's no way I can do that. And she's like, well, you're not happy doing what you're doing. Why not give it a try? So I'm like, yeah. Okay. So I started as what's called a paraprofessional. That's a teacher's assistant. A lot of the kids I work with have very high support needs. So they have an adult with them at all times, aside from the teacher. Your other word for it is a one-on-one aide. Your job as an aide is to basically follow this kid around, help them with their behavioral needs, life skills, educational skills. So that's what I started as, and I really loved it. Like I said, crazy things happen. I have the weirdest stories from work, but absolutely loved it. And, did that for a long time. Really wanted to go back to school to be a teacher, but you know how life goes. You get caught up. Pandemic was kind of my wake-up call, and that's when I decided to go back to school. So,
oh wow,
did that. I just completed my first year teaching.
Yay, congratulations.
It's been officially a year, and so it's been a wild ride, but it was really nice, to kind of find something by accident.
Yeah,
and to have it be meaningful for me. It's not just a backup plan. It's not I sucked as an artist. This is what I'm going to do. It's something I really enjoy and I'm really passionate about, and I like going to work, and I don't think a lot of people can say that. So I think that's really special, and I'm really glad I found it.
Yeah. Do you still do art? Or?
I wish I could say I do. My living situation right now, I did oil painting. So just that uses a lot of the chemicals and stuff, and I'm in a small apartment. I don't really have much ventilation. So I don't, I sketch sometimes. I'm into crafty hobbies. So, I cross stitch, I embroider.
Oh, cool.
I do bracelet making. I still like artsy things. And it's something one day I want to go back to.
Yeah. Yeah. But just not right now.
It's just, space is my big thing. I'm one of those people, when I paint, I need a warehouse. I want to be able to spin around all my paintings.
Oh my God, would you do body painting? Where you throw paint on your body and then you're ugh, on canvases?
I did it once, but only with my face, and it was it was a class assignment. I can't believe you weren't there for this, because everyone was making fun of me. So I paint portraiture. That's my thing. I do. It is what it is. I do figurative art. And the teachers are all at Cal State Fullerton. It's very big on abstract impressionism. So they're always pushing me to be more abstract. And one of these class assignments was paints a self-portrait, but you can't use your hands. So I just covered my whole face in paint and just literally smashed it into a canvas. God. And I don't do this, because it was definitely toxic. I put it in my mouth and just spit it all over. And then like it was a mess.
The things we do when we're young, like.
And the teacher's like, "This is really cool. How do you get those splatters?" I'm like, I spit it. And she's like, "Don't do that. That's acrylic, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You're gonna give yourself cancer." And I'm like, "Well, I don't paint like this. This is a one-time thing." And she's like, "Okay, it's cool.
Yeah.
Don't do that again. You're gonna
Oh
die."
my God.
So, maybe we'll do that again at a larger scale.
Yeah. Or you're like, what is it? You're like 80 and you're like, I know I'm not gonna live much longer. I'll just spit.
I'm gonna die anyways. Might as well like eat cadmiums and
Yeah.
or just find a brand of paint that's not toxic. But I worked with what I had.
I feel like it's gonna be one of those things where it's like, because you did the spit art, like it's gonna get you really big or something. But then you're like on your deathbed because you got poisoned.
I'm sure if we look it up right now, like some guy did it and some guy ended up with cancer 30 years later. I'm sorry to whoever I'm making fun of.
I wouldn't say we're making fun of them, but we're just like, that's a fact.
Mm-hmm. People didn't know how toxic these things were.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. But now we know.
So
knowledge is power.
Life advice, don't put paint in your mouth.
That's a good. Everybody needs to know about that. Well, as a special education teacher, is there any terminology that would be helpful for people to know when interacting with your kind of students?
So we already kind of talked about this. I kind of gave her a preface of what I was going to say. Because it is so personal. Like most of the people I work with are autistic. And you'll notice when I talk about them, I say autistic person. A lot of the time people are taught to use person first language. So say person with autism. But more recently, the autistic community has expressed the way I'm using it is how most people want it to be used. And that's how, some of my students, the people in my life who have autism have said they're most comfortable with it being used. So I try to honor that. But that being said, because it is a very personal thing that relates a lot to identity, you will hear people say they like person with autism better. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm explaining myself. I'm going to say it, if it comes up during this podcast, which I'm sure it will, the way, the people in my life have asked. But, if you know anyone else who is on the spectrum and they prefer it the other way, it's, all about the people who are part of the community, the people who are autistic. So they're the ones who really call the shots. And that's one thing I will say. I know a lot about autism. I am not diagnosed with it. I will never know everything. The best resources to ask are, people who are autistic.
Yeah.
I can tell you a lot of things from a teacher's perspective, but it's always good to, stay humble. I still learn a lot from my students. They're the ones who have to, deal with it on a daily basis. They're the ones who live it. Yes, I'm around it, but I'm never going to know quite exactly what it's like to live with that.
Yeah.
So that's always my best resource. And I always try to stay humble to the fact, because people will be like, oh, you're a professional. Oh, you've worked with this for a long time. Yeah, but I don't live it 24/7.
Yeah.
So I can tell you a lot. I'm not going to doubt, my skills, what I've seen, what I've learned through my formal education and, my work experiences. But
yeah,
someone with autism will always be able to tell you more than me.
Do you only work with people with autism, or are there other kind of students in your class?
My school, I'm not going to name where I work just, for privacy's sake.
Of course.
It is centered around autism, but it does cater to, any of the disabilities that are recognized to get special education services. Mm-hmm. So that can include, I'll just give some examples, things like traumatic brain injuries, emotional disorders, various medical, physical disabilities. Mm-hmm. There's like a whole list by, the country that specify how you get special education service. But my school specifies mainly in autism and anything that's kind of like that.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of, so just back to your education, what kind of schooling goes into becoming a special education teacher?
It's the same as, any teacher. So your undergraduate degree can be in really anything, preferably education. Mine is not. As I said, I'm an art major, but you do have to go to a credentialing program. You do have tests you need to take to prove your competence, in math, reading, writing, those different things. And just the classes are different. Like with mine, my classes, you do learn more about how to deal with, behaviors and different things. A lot of the students I work with are nonverbal. So as you can imagine, not being able to express your wants and needs can be really frustrating. So I do see a lot of violent, aggressive behaviors, towards staff, other students, themselves. So a lot of our schooling is geared toward teaching us, the function of that. They're not just doing this to cause problems. There's a reason. Like I said, a big one is not having communication skills. That's something I'm always trying to build with my students. But you do need to be trained to deal with that. I get punched at work.
Oh, God. What's been like the worst injury?
iPad to the ribs that broke my ribs this summer.
Wait, 2 times?
Oh, no, one iPad to the ribs, but it broke my ribs.
Oh, but it broke 2 ribs.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was like Captain America threw an iPad. Like it was like that shield toss, like right into my ribs, took me down to the floor.
Wow. Do they, I don't know if this is weird to be like, do they express regret or, yeah.
And it's different for a lot of my students. Just, with the population I work with, a lot of the students do have varying what I call support needs. We kind of talked about this earlier where, people will use labels like, oh, he's high functioning. He's like, Sheldon or Rain Man or like, quote unquote, like lower functioning, which is, nonverbal people. And I really don't like those labels. Just who am I to decide what someone's functional level is? Just because you can't talk doesn't mean you don't have thoughts that are as complex or more complex than mine. So the levels I use are like support needs. So high support needs is, someone who will need someone helping them through a lot of their things in their lives. Like I have students that, need help using the restroom, need help to get dressed, along with, helping with academic skills. They can't walk safely down the hallway. They're going to run out a door and into the street and they're not going to look for cars. So that's someone I'd label high support needs.
Yeah.
Whereas a lower support needs person is, someone who may need help explaining social situations, giving a little bit more time for things, different approaches like that. The population I work with is all high support needs. My school is where you end up after you've gotten kicked out of 2 or 3 schools, not students. So,
but would that be like public education schools?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Just with my school, we are funded by districts when they don't have the proper supports to give a student the education they deserve. Everybody in our country is given the right to a free and proper public education. So when public schools don't have the amenities to fulfill that, they contract to us. And, like I said, we have things like the one-on-one aides. Some of my students have 2 aides. They have 2 adults that follow them around the whole time they're at school because their support needs are so high.
Yeah.
We have BCBAs, which is a board certified behavior analysis. So someone who deals with, like I said, finding the function of behaviors and addressing those. So they work with me to, best suit those kids' needs. So that was a long explanation, but going back to, do they express remorse? Yes. Like with some of the kids, it looks a lot different, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
The one who broke my ribs, he has limited speech abilities. So for a while, ribs take a while to heal. I was in the classroom not feeling too great for probably about a couple months, where they were asking me, you need to keep your distance from the more aggressive students. So he's one who's very affectionate normally, like he likes a lot of hugs and things like that. So he'd ask me for that. And I'd say, I'm sorry, but remember what happened? You hurt me. So until teacher's feeling better, I can't do that, bud, and I'm sorry. But that's what happens when you hurt someone. And he'd kind of get quiet. He wouldn't say too much. But you could tell he was listening. His face would get very serious when I talk about things like that.
Yeah.
Other kids will cry. Other kids, it's less obvious. They may not show that they understand, but I always try to assume competence and assume even if they're not showing me understanding, I think almost everyone in the room understands everything that's going on. Yeah. Whether or not they react in the typical way is another thing.
I think that's like something that, me having in quote unquote in normal life, like I'm not interacting with anyone with severe autism or that needs these kind of help. It's like, I'm so glad I get to talk to you about this, because in a way, I'm just like, I feel so ignorant because even some of the questions I'm like thinking of, or I'm like, wait, is this okay? Even to ask like, oh, do they express remorse? But it's like, oh my God, yeah, of course. They're like people with feeling. But I think how you're telling that, like you said, with low communication, it's really hard to tell what people are feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can't say physically, hey, I'm sorry, sometimes you can't tell. Or a lot of my students, cool thing, we're living in a time of iPads and technology. A lot of them will have, like, they call them speech devices. So it's an app on your iPad that allows you to, there's picture icons. So students, who aren't even reading at a point can, touch the picture icons they want to say. But a lot of those students, when they're learning, that's kind of just basic things like, I want bathroom, I want food. It may not have some of those more complex things like, I feel guilty, I feel sorry, because some of those are skills you have to build up to. And with some of the challenges my students face, a lot of them may not be ready for those words yet, because we're still working on, having them ask us to go to the bathroom instead of, when they have to go to the bathroom, hitting the person closest to us. So it's really interesting. And I do get where it can be hard coming up with questions for me. Because even like my spiel in the beginning about how I talk about autism and the phrases I use and the wording I use, there are people who are going to disagree with me and say, that's not right. Well, I have this cousin and they don't like it when people call them that. They like this. It's always changing and always evolving, and it's so personal and it's so hard. And we do have to remember, like, just talking to the parents I work with, a lot of my students who have these severe support needs, a lot of them don't go out in the community. So these aren't people you see often.
Right.
I have parents who, when I ask, where do you take your kids? Where do you guys go on holidays? They say, he can't leave the house. It's not safe to leave the house. We don't have the support. So it's not surprising to me when people say like, oh, I've never seen someone who acts the way you describe the students you work with. Very few of my students are able to go out. And that's what's cool about my school. We take them out.
Oh, that's awesome. Is there an example you can give for like what you guys do?
We try to teach a lot of functional skills, and with my group right now, like I said, a lot of them don't leave the house. So we have to start basic. So we do mainly like fast food and grocery stores.
Oh my gosh.
Because we want to look at things that are both applicable to their lives and, really motivating. Some of these kids haven't been these places and they're really nervous, and it's scary to go out when you don't go out.
Yeah.
So one of my first things is I have to have parents sign these like long permission slips with everything listing. I always ask what their like favorite place on the list is, and I try to take them.
Aww.
So that being like, when we go out, like, good things happen.
Yeah.
So one of my students is like obsessed with Chipotle. So
oh my god,
we took him to Chipotle and he was so happy.
That's so cute. That's so nice.
He loved it. It was like, we go in groups, but usually for their first one, just so I can gauge things, it can be just me, their one-on-one aides, and them. And we have a ton of vans at our school, and we just go places. And
yeah. Well, okay. So now that I think I had an assumption that these were just like high school kids or, but if they need assistance, like, how long are they in the school system or like in your school?
They can stay in a school like mine if, they have the disabilities I talked to about that, are recognized by the United States. They are able to receive schooling in a place like mine until they are 22. That's when they age out. Then, and this is where I get a little confused. It gets a lot more complicated, but, you can go through like social services and different things like that. Most areas have what they call a regional center. And, those can provide these supports, in medical insurance, things like that. They can provide supports at home and different things like that. There's adult day programs they can be enrolled in after 22, that keep these skills going, because most of our students will continue to need to work on these skills. They just need a little more time. And, that's stuff they can achieve and they can get. Unfortunately, it's not always as easy as it should be.
Yeah.
Like, I have a lot of parents who don't know, what the state offers.
Oh, wow.
And I'll be like, hey, have you called your regional center? Because it sounds like you need some help at home. Oh, I can't afford that. You don't need to pay for it.
Yeah. Wow, that's so crazy that they aren't even given that kind of information, like off the bat.
That's, how a lot of the services in the country are, and it's unfortunate.
True. Yeah.
And, we do try to prepare parents for this. We do have meetings because our students, can't always follow, the general ed curriculum, say like, oh, by this age, they'll be doing this and this. Our schools have what's called IEP, Individual Education Plan. So what every student works on for a year looks very different depending, on whatever needs they need met. So we meet once a year to, go over the goals, say how they're going, how the student's doing, and set new goals for the next year. So that's a good opportunity to, connect with parents and consider what's going on at home. It's great because it's a really big team effort.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you're dealing with students like mine where I work with high schoolers. You do start considering, functional needs aside from academics. Of course, we work on math and language arts and things like that. But we do also work on, skills for being in the community. So I do want to make the goals I set for them as relevant as possible. So that's talking to parents and saying, what's life going to look like for him once he graduates? Where's he going to live? Is he going to be at home? Is he going to go, to a group home? Is he going to have a job? What skills do you want to see improve on at home? Just, like anybody else, we want to give them the best, most fulfilling life, whatever that means to these students. It can be very different from ours.
Yeah.
But that's all the stuff we try to address, which is really cool. It's not just academics,
Yeah.
I'm teaching students like job skills and life skills.
Yeah. What is the age range for your school?
So the school itself goes basically through elementary through 22.
Okay.
So my classroom, the youngest is 14 and the oldest is 18. So I basically teach all of high school. Just because, like I talked about, how they each have their own individual education plan, they're kind of more like clumped together. It's not like a public education where, every year you're moving to a different grade and a new classroom and a new teacher. Especially with a lot of my students, they have trouble adjusting to change. So, to move them that quickly, when some of them, it may take them 2-3 months to adjust to a new environment.
Yeah.
This allows them to be, more comfortable and spend more time because they're all hopefully used to me by now.
Yeah. And how many students do you have in a class at a time?
So I'm not sure if this goes state to state, but in California you can have up to 12.
Okay.
In a special education classroom. So I have 11 right now.
Oh.
My goodness, I'm not at capacity. But my classroom is very busy. Like I talked about, one-on-one aids are pretty common, especially in the level of support needs I have. So every student has a one-on-one aid, 2 have 2-on-1s. So I have more adults in my room than students.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because the support needs are so high.
Yeah. And obviously you're not the only class at this school.
No.
So what kind of is every class as difficult as yours, or as needs as much help as yours, or?
My class is probably one of the more active ones on campus, but it's all a similar population across. Obviously with the younger kids, they're smaller, the aggression isn't as intense. Like when a 6-year-old hits you, it's not going to hurt as much as a 16-year-old.
A 16-year-old who also is in an adult body.
Oh yeah. There's 2 of mine that I am bigger than. So.
Oh my god.
It's half of them are over 6 foot. I'm like, how did this happen? You're 15. Stop. They can just pick me up. And please don't.
No. And then, what is the female to male ratio in the class?
I only have boys right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, dude city.
Yeah.
and this is where I may need to do more research, but from my experience, like I said, I was an aide before I was a teacher, so basically I've been in the field for 10 years, and it's not uncommon to have a class of all boys. Usually in most classes, if there are girls, there's maybe 1 to 3. It seems like, for whatever reason, we see, autism and related disorders more apparent in boys, and it's something... I want to learn more about it, Because how does this happen? You know, you always hear that, you know, boys are more diagnosed than girls are, just because a lot of these tests they use are more geared towards, you know, looking at boys. Like,
Yeah.
the big thing with like ADHD right now, a lot of those were examining, you know, young boys and not adult women. So that's, and it's diagnosed a lot less in adult women. But once they get to, you know, the severity of mine, I don't really understand. You definitely know. So that is something I'm always curious about. Like, why are there so few girls? Because like, it can't just have to do with, everyone always says, you know, girls are better at masking. You know, there's more like social pressures to fit in.
Yeah.
So, you know, girls with lower support needs may feel more pressure to, you know, mask and hide the traits, you know, related to autism, whereas boys may not. But that doesn't quite explain when you're dealing with high support needs populations.
Yeah, I mean, you have talked about aggression a good amount. Do you think that also with testosterone that causes more aggression that doesn't appear in women as much, or like in the female body, or
possibly? Like, I wouldn't rule that out.
I know, I'm asking as if we already know. Like, you know. No, and this is like just discussing.
It's a good question, and that puts more on my plate to research and look into, because I wouldn't necessarily say like that's where aggression comes from. I think it's kind of like what I was talking about, not being able to verbalize needs. Like, imagine how frustrating that would be if you, I talk about the bathroom a lot, but this is like the one that a parent comes to mind. You really have to pee, and you keep standing out of your chair, and someone keeps sitting you back down saying, no, you need to sit. No, it's time to sit. And you have no way to communicate with them that you need to go to the bathroom. What are you going to do at some point? I'm going to push that person over and run to the bathroom. I don't want to pee my pants. So I try to think of things like that, or a lot of the students, you know, experience things physically, like their sensory needs are very different from us. So I've had students tell me, like, one, for example, he'd hit his hands on the table really hard to the point where we were worried he was going to hurt himself. He had bruises on his arms and things like that. And he was someone who did have more communication. So we'd ask him, why are you doing that? And he'd tell me, like, it felt like things were crawling in his skin. Like, he just experienced things felt differently to him.
Oh, wow.
The sensory processing is different.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, it feels like something's crawling on my skin, or my arms feel numb. So I do it to wake them up. I'm like, we may want to find a better way to do that. And that's something we work with. But just because with autism, it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
Some people like him, sometimes their body goes numb. They may have very low sensory awareness, where others may, you know, everything feels so strongly. We see a lot of noise sensitivity. So students who completely lose their minds when there's loud noises. I have one of my biggest boys, how tall is he? He's over 6 foot now, probably about getting close to 300 pounds. If he hears a noise he doesn't like, he comes swinging at you.
Oh, man.
There's been staff members who have gotten concussions and things like that. It's just he experiences sound so differently.
Yeah.
He wears headphones and earplugs, both of them, together at the same time, at all times. And certain noises, sirens are the big one.
Yeah.
If we're ever out in the community and we hear a siren,
and being in
everyone
city,
has to prep. Oh my gosh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. And is it usually like, do they ever lash out at other students?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Is it, okay.
And that's, for me, the scariest. Just, you know, part of taking the job, me and all my staff members, the aides, we all know there's a good chance we're going to get hurt. And it sucks to get hurt. But we choose that risk in taking the job.
Yeah.
The kids don't. So that, I always feel like I'm not doing my job when it happens. And it does happen. I don't think I've ever been around when, you know, another student's been concussed by another student. We try our hardest, you know, to not let that happen. I haven't seen anything that severe happen. Yeah. Usually the most common is things like, you know, scratching or slapping.
And then, like, is any of these behaviors things that you were taught when you went to school, studying to become a teacher for this, or?
Yeah. Just because a lot of programs aren't as kind of crazy as mine, you're not really taught some of these things. You're taught to expect to sometimes get hurt.
Yeah.
But depending, you really learn from experience. It's one of those things that's really hard to imagine when you're not in it. One of the first things they told me when I was, you know, looking at going back to school, and I went to, you know, the back to school open college, open house night, was, you know, they sit you down with the counselor and they say, Have you worked as an aide? Have you volunteered at these schools? Because if you haven't, you need to go do that for 6 months before you become a teacher in this.
Oh, wow.
Because you don't want to put all this money and time and effort into becoming a teacher and find out you can't handle it.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, you know, my school is kind of on the more severe end. We're basically the end of the road. If you can't last with us, that's when it goes to residential care facilities, different things like that.
What is residential care facility?
You live and go to school at the same place. Oh. Some of those can almost be like group homes where, you know, it's a house. It looks like a house. And, you know, they have teachers and different people like that come in and teach you there just because it may be too hard or there may be too many behaviors to have you go back and forth. It can also be an institution like a hospital where you're in a clinic and you're the only kid in that room with 3 adults, 2 aides and a teacher.
Wow.
So we're one of the last kind of school stops before that happens. And I love our program. We try so hard, you know, to be able to keep kids in school.
Yeah.
And our goal is, you know, always to, you know, decrease behaviors as much as we can so they are safe enough to go to a public school and just, even if they stay with us, which most of them do, just, it's not fun to hit people. It's not fun to hurt yourself. Like, we want them all to have the best quality of life and we work really hard and I think we do a really good job at it.
Yeah.
I hope I do a good job at it. I feel like I have. You talk to some of the parents and they may say otherwise. And, you know, that's being a teacher in what's now 2024.
Yeah. I'm not going to try and understand parents today.
Most of mine are great. There's a couple, though, where I'm like, can we just get along?
Yeah.
Please don't make me cry in this meeting.
Oh, no. So I feel like you've described some behaviors, but are there other kind of student behaviors you have to deal with on the day-to-day that like are pretty consistent or you feel like is pretty memorable or memorable? Like,
I'm just like, oh.
Getting your ribs broken seems pretty memorable.
The Captain America throw was pretty good. So many. There seems to be a recent trend where whenever I have a meeting, I come back and, you know, the class seems kind of calm, but then one of my aides will be like, stuff happened when you were gone. And I'm like, what kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And it's the weirdest things. Like, I have one who gets frustrated and he takes off all his clothes and somehow was able to backflip onto someone's shoulder. And I come back and I'm like, he what? They're like, no, they caught him. He's fine, but he was on his shoulders. I'm like, how? And they're like, no, he like flipped against the wall. It was crazy. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm happy or sad to have not been here for that.
Yeah. Like, a backflip's pretty physically challenging, but you also mentioned having a student that's like 300 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
So is it just like the range for like fitness?
Oh, it's kind of just like other classrooms. I have some kids, you know, who are overweight and need help. And then I have some kids who are very strong and very fit and have great diets and can run for miles.
Oh my gosh. How long do you have them in class for? Is it just like a typical
It's a regular school day. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do a regular school schedule. You know, we're still expected to be in the room and working on certain subjects for a certain amount of time. Yeah. So, you know, I have my supervisors who come in and, you know, check to make sure my class is running on schedule. Obviously, we get off of schedule sometimes, but, you know, they want to see that I have curriculum planned. Like, a lot of people have this idea sometimes that special ed is almost like daycare, and it's like, no, we have a curriculum. We stick to it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there are days where that's very hard. Like, for example, I started teaching when I was still in my college courses. With special education, they let you do that because there's not enough teachers. Yay, teacher shortage. So I would have to submit videos once every couple months showing my lessons. And those videos, oh my gosh. It's the same student. Every single time we record, he flips a desk. Oh my God. And these are not little desks. When these desks are flipped over, I can't pick them off the floor and flip them over by myself. I need someone else to help me. It's very hard. And
what, does he know that the camera's rolling? Is that why?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say when we look at like the function of behaviors with his, we look at why students have behaviors. He likes attention a lot. And, you know, his communication, like I mentioned, most of my students still struggle with that. So he doesn't he's not really able to just be like, hey, look at me. Hey, I need attention. So he'll seek it in negative ways. And one of the things he was doing a lot was, in group lessons. Everyone's here. Everyone's able to look at you. Let's do something now so I can get 30 people to look at me.
Oh my God.
Just with my students, because they all have, like I said, those individual goals. We do a lot of independent work where my classroom aides will be working with their individual students. And, I move around to make sure the aides are teaching the goals right, answer their questions, model how it's supposed to be done, make sure, we have tons of paperwork, tons of data, because I can't do individual goals with all of my students. So I rely on the aides, and then I'm more like a manager a lot of the time, where my job is to go through their paperwork and be like, yo, this don't look right. He's supposed to be getting 60% on these at this point in the year. Why is it only 30? Let's sit down. And that's when I, work with the students and different things like that. I try to move around and, work with them all as often as I can. And see what's going on with everybody. But yeah, it's a very different than a regular classroom environment, just because you do have so many adults.
Yeah.
So you're teaching them, you're teaching the kids. I really like it. I have wonderful staff. It really helps you get through the day.
That's
We
awesome.
kind of trauma bond when bad things happen.
Yes.
And that's another thing I wanted to talk about is, I wonder if people listening are wondering about this. When I talk about like the behaviors, like it's funny and I'm laughing, and people will hear it and be like, why are you laughing? That's insane. Like, you got your ribs broken and you're making a joke about this? Or some people, think I'm making fun of the kids.
I never even thought of that. Like, it doesn't sound like you're making fun
It's not common, but I had one friend who addressed that. Like, oh, I'm not sure I'd want someone, laughing about a bad thing, my kid did. So that makes me feel uncomfortable when you do it. And I'm like, oh no, you want a teacher who talks like this.
Yeah.
Just, it's stressful, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
If you don't laugh, you cry. So I would rather have someone who can laugh about it. Like, that's how you process it. And that's how I can come back to work and, still work with these kids and not be scared. It is scary to have someone break your ribs.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back into a classroom where they're 2 feet in front of you every single day.
Yeah. And it's also like you've mentioned a few times, like when these kids act out, they'll like attack the closest person. And that must be so scary, especially like when you say you have 6-foot kids that are like, as you said, only 3 of them are the same height as you, like everyone else is taller. Like having someone coming at you.
Oh yeah.
And it's like before you even know what has set them off.
Yeah.
Like it must be so terrifying.
Sometimes you don't know it. Some behaviors, it's really easy to diagnose the function. Like I was talking about the student with the loud noises.
Yeah.
But I can't control when a siren's going to come by.
Yeah.
So you hear that noise and you have a split second to decide what you're going to do, because he's going to hear it as soon as you do. Other kids, the function of their behavior isn't as clear. It could be something internal. A lot of my students can't tell you if they have a stomach ache or something like that. I won't go into details just for privacy, but I do have one student where the mom informed me about, some pretty serious medical conditions that definitely attribute to how he's feeling every day. And it's like, no wonder he is angry and attacks people. He feels like crap and he can't tell anyone that he feels like crap. And we're here trying to get him to do math.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And we try our best, to communicate with the parents and learn about these things. But I do make mistakes. I don't know. I didn't know about that. His mom didn't know about it. She felt awful too. Like, oh, we've all been pushing him through and he feels like crap every day.
Yeah. Well, what was it that finally got him to communicate that to...
He didn't. They went to the doctor.
Oh wow.
Parents kind of know, when he's more aggressive that something's going on, but sometimes, how the medical system is.
Yeah.
Getting a diagnosis isn't easy, especially with someone who isn't verbal. Mm-hmm. So what tests you run when they can't tell you it's my head that hurts versus it's my stomach that hurts? Mm-hmm. With him, it's just like, oh, he's being really aggressive. Something doesn't feel right. But what is it?
Yeah. And
I think that's where it's easy, like I mentioned. It is scary sometimes. But I think understanding what I've been talking about how frustrating to not be able to express yourself. Mm-hmm. And to, have to exist in a world that wasn't quite made for you.
Yeah.
That was made for neurotypical people and you don't quite fit in. Mm-hmm. Like, I can only imagine how frustrating that may be.
Yeah.
And the negative behaviors make a lot more sense when you look at it from that perspective. And that's where I can come to the table with a lot more compassion, and I can forgive them. I don't hold anything against my students. That's why you have to go laugh about it. You find your coping thing. In the moment, these things can be really frustrating or scary.
Yeah.
But when you're able to kind of joke about it later, it makes me feel better, and it makes me...
And like you said,
I don't hold the grudges.
With like your staff and being able to have people to rely on that experienced it as well must be very comforting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We see a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Literally shit.
Yeah.
And when I first got hired, it was over winter break, and they give me all the reports that tell you everything, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go look into the behavior plans.
Oh my god.
That's where all the details it is, and it says
and that's like the best way for you to prepare anyway. Like
yeah. But you just see the term anal digging, and you're like, okay, I'm leaving.
Like
I'm done. What did I get myself into? What is this?
Like, I know you're joking, but like, speaking of that topic, I actually want to know, has there been staff that were like, I'm done, I quit, like, I can't do this? Yeah.
My class has been really great. I've gotten an amazing group, but people do get frustrated. People get burnout. The turnover rate is very high, especially at a school like mine. As it's high in any special education program, but when you're dealing with the severity I am, it's very high. It's not uncommon to see people quit in their first week of work. It's not uncommon to have people quit during training. We do 2 weeks of training when you start before you even enter you enter in the classroom, but you come to observe. We've had people walk out in the observations like, hell not doing this.
Yeah.
Just like I was describing with my school, it's really hard to picture these things without being in them. Mm-hmm. Even reading these reports, if you have people who haven't worked in the field or, worked in a public school special education program where the intensity of the behaviors aren't as high, people will read it and it still won't really process like how intense it can get. So I had one student, she's no longer in my classroom, but at multiple points she's bit people's fingers so hard she's almost bitten them off.
Oh, wow.
So when she's mad, she was a big girl, had a hard time moving. So the best thing to do when she's mad is, give her space to calm down, but definitely give her space. Don't stick your fingers out. But I'd have staff members like, oh, poor baby, and try to go sit next to her and hug her.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, not at this moment. Oh, but she's cool with me. Oh, she was cool with that guy whose finger she tried to bite. Yeah. We can comfort her, but I need you to stand 5 feet away. And just recognizing those things, but it's like people can't picture that in their head until they see it.
Of course.
And I'd tell them, go talk to this person immediately. Go look at what his finger looks like. It's happened. We are lucky to be in the same business plaza as an urgent care center. It is not uncommon for staff members to have to go to urgent care.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Have you had to go to urgent care?
Yeah, rib stuff. But really any kind of serious injury, I can't talk now. Or anytime a staff member really feels they need to. It's not up for us to decide if someone's not feeling well. Luckily, our HR is really great. So if you're saying you're not feeling well, just go over there.
Yeah.
Sometimes aides will fight me on not wanting to go, and I'm like, no, you need to go. Oh my gosh, it was like the scariest thing recently. One of the students jumped at a guy's face, bit right below his chin, and dragged him to the floor by his chin. That's one where I panic. I'm usually okay at staying calm, but we have walkie-talkies to, ask for people to come support us. And I was just screaming into that, come now.
Oh my God.
I couldn't see it when he got dragged down. I thought he had him by the nose. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to lose his nose. Oh my gosh. But that's one where if they bite you, no, you need to go to urgent care, broke skin, you're going.
Yeah.
I'll have staff members, no, I'm okay, I feel fine. I'm like, no.
How was the injury? Was it?
It bruised. It looked pretty gross, but he
didn't tear anything off, or?
No, his face is still intact. He may have a scar.
Yeah.
But I've never seen something like that happen.
And for someone to be like, no, it's okay. No, I'm fine.
I have amazing staff members. I can't say this enough. I'm like, everyone's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why people will hear these stories and be like, how can you come to this every day and like it? Yeah. And just the people are so great. The compassion, so great. It sounds like so cheesy to be like, we do it for the kids, we do it for the people, but 100%. That's what keeps you going. The coworkers are great. The kids are great. We have our hard days. We have a lot of hard moments, but to see them improve is so big, and it sounds so corny, but like it's true. When you know you've actually made a difference in someone's life, like it feels great.
Yeah.
Because being a teacher post-pandemic is not easy. A lot of things have changed. There's shortages in education of staff members. Just, I hear it more from gen ed teachers, but like the levels of respect are different. The parents are different.
Yeah.
Different things like that. So there definitely are days where I'm more like, why am I doing this? But it's kind of more because of the bureaucracy than the kids.
Oh,
but then when you see them making improvements, you're like, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. Yeah. Remember these moments the next time someone's yelling at you about something that's all your fault and you're a terrible person. Or one of my students is yelling at me. I've told you about the one who yells at me all the time. It's all your fault, Miss Jen, and you ruined everything.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not the first guy that's told me that.
Oh dear.
Some of the personalities.
Yeah. It's so funny because I do like asking people like what about your jobs or your passions make you thrive and tired, but I think you covered them. I think you covered it.
Education is tiring. I don't think any teacher isn't tired right now. And, getting punched isn't not tiring. And getting pulled down to the floor by your hair and getting pooped on and getting spit on. These things happen, and it's not just a once in a while occurrence.
You've been pooped on?
I've thrown out my shoes at work and walked around barefoot.
Oh, but did they throw it at you, or was it actual?
It was explosive. It was a student in a diaper who I was changing, and it just exploded everywhere. I don't even know how to describe it. That was one of my trauma moments. This was before I was teaching. This was when I was an aide. Because the one thing I pull rank on now, I will always help my aides. I will always, I did it for so long. There needs to be no boundaries. The one boundary I have is poop. Someone poops and I'm like, nope, I got a credential, so I never have to do this again. No, absolutely not. Wow. But when I was an aide, I don't even know. It somehow got everywhere. It was on the walls. It was on the bottom of it was dripping down the toilet bowl. And it got on my shoes, and I just took off my shoes and threw them away after I was done. And I'm walking in the hallway, and the principal sees me in my socks, and she's like, you cannot be doing that. Where are your shoes? I'm like, they're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone.
You're like, you can fetch
Do you want me to go home? Because I can go home right now. She's like, go find another pair of shoes.
Did you have to go out and buy?
No, she meant find them on campus. She's like, you're fine, but please try to find another pair of shoes, because that's not safe. And a coworker let me borrow her extra pair of shoes, but they were 4 sizes too big, so I was flopping around like a clown.
No.
And I'm like, I'm wearing shoes. What up?
Well, to not even let you get shoes, I don't know.
I'm sure they would have let me go home, but it was one of those things that was the end of the day, and I was I live too far to just drive home, and we're almost done. I'm not gonna go buy a new pair.
Yeah.
She's
just
bring please
extra shoes with you from now on, or?
You think I would, but I have not learned from that one. I do keep extra clothes in my car. And we have extra clothes usually in my classroom. Yeah. Usually for the kids, but sometimes I'll have staff members.
Is there anything, because we've talked about sound, sensitivity. Is there any visual sensitivity? Do you have to wear certain colors, or is that not a problem?
I don't really have that issue in my classroom where I've seen too much with vision.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. I find with vision, it's more stimming, looking at things, and, sometimes it can be distracting to the students, but I haven't seen it cause too many, aggressive behaviors.
Okay.
One of my favorites was I had a student who would stim to my face for a good 2 weeks. I couldn't do any work with him. I'd be like, hey, bud, let's get to work. And he just, the very typical kind of stim you think of, with the flapping the arms and, the vocalizing and the jumping up and down and just at my face for a whole week. And I'm like, I need to focus. Please look at this. And he'd just be like, oh. And then he just forgot about it. But
oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it was I've never had the face happen. It was really funny, but I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, we haven't done any work this week because you cannot listen to me talk. Or then I think with him, he was one that was he would visually stim to a lot of things. So there were like these Cat in the Hat pictures we had hanging up in the classroom, and we had to remove those because he'd get so distracted and just want to look at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my students are like that. So we'll have, remember when we were kids, you'd have those like cardboard, like trifold things you'd put on your table to focus. We'll have things like that, or big mats we use to kind of block them from seeing each other or seeing other things in the classroom when it's time to do individual work.
Yeah.
The seating arrangement is like the weirdest game of Tetris ever. Because you have to keep like certain people away from each other because they trigger each other. And then, with certain aggressive behaviors, you have to have them in certain places where, you can protect them and protect yourself.
Yeah.
And, anytime I try to move someone's seat, it's like this giant puzzle. Like, oh, but if he's here, then he's next to this person. And, oh, no, he's next to this. And that's too distracting. Yeah. Like,
what is the relationship between the students?
Just because my students are so different, some are very interested in each other. Others show no interest. That I keep saying, just because they don't show it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
Or they almost seem like they don't notice that there's other people in the room. Others are hyper aware. The one I said hates me, I made a chart of all the students. So it's all their pictures and their names because, we have them play games together where they need to pick people to play with the limited verbal capabilities. I like picture icons. Picture icons are something we use a lot. Otherwise they always pick like the same kid. So this way I can have all the kids and, we cross off the ones that are absent.
Yeah.
He has taken it to mean something it does not mean. And it is his approved peer list and he hates everybody, he says. He has an X through all of them. And he's like, I don't like any of these people. And I'm like, that's not what it's for.
Oh my God.
They're all nice. We love them. And he's like, I don't love them. And he holds some grudges. What was he telling me? I hate this person because he kicked me in the butt when we were taking a walk. And I'm like, dude, that was a year ago.
Dang.
Do you think we can forgive him? He said he was sorry. No, I hate him and he's ugly and he's stupid. And you're like, what? Like, how do we say that nicer? I need space. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really hard to not laugh sometimes.
Yeah.
Saying these things about each other.
Yeah. But it's also like really nice to develop that kind of relationship with your students. Like you said, if you had any kind of like, what was it? Like, not fear, but if you were like always frustrated or if you were like really being like, oh my God, I can't handle this. Like it would just be, you wouldn't be able to help anybody and it'd just be so stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I always go back to laughter. And I think it's mainly people that aren't in the field sometimes think it's inappropriate. Everyone in the field, it's how we get through it. And you'd rather have a staff member that can laugh at something that happened than someone who's going to bottle it up and do something inappropriate.
Yeah.
That's when you got to be scared.
Don't do inappropriate things. That's not cool.
It is a hard job where it is a place where you can lose your temper. And that's why having a good staff is so important. You support each other. So I don't have people that lose their tempers in ways that would be harmful to the students or themselves.
Yeah.
We work together. If someone needs a break, they can take a break. That's fine. I don't want anyone to do something. It's so easy to lose your temper. We see a lot of amazing people where you can, like I said, get bit in the face, you can get pooped on, and you can stand there and talk to this child like they're still a person and they still matter and without anger. And it's amazing what people can do. And I'm so lucky to get to work with so many good people and so many genuine people.
And, just after everything we talked about and, just knowing you as a personal friend, I think like that also goes to you, that you having such a passion for this field and helping and, being able to have such good humor about it and take everything in stride with everything you've been through. I think that takes such a strong and amazing person. And I just thank you for what you're doing. I just think you're awesome.
I try my best. I hope I can be a positive force in the world. All these things sound so cheesy when you say them out loud, but it really helps.
I mean, it's like, what if we aren't cheesy about what we want to be a positive force, then we just be like negative and like not
negative
nice.
Nancy's.
I think everything that you want and that you're striving for is like the best intentions.
It's thriving.
Yeah, it's thriving.
We're thriving.
We're thriving. You're thriving for yourself and for your students. I think your students are really lucky to have you. So
I hope so. I'm lucky to oh my God, it keeps sounding cheesier. I'm lucky to have them, but seriously, they're they're great people.
Yeah.
And it's great to see them succeed, and I want to see that.
Yeah. Definitely.
And that's what keeps me coming back more than anything.
Aww.
Even the one who broke my ribs, I love him.
Yeah. I can
He shows me my favorite train rave video.
Train rave?
That we're going off on a tangent, but it's like this little kid video where it's like animal sounds, but it's like this train, and for some reason he's at a DJ booth and it's like pumping, and I'm like, what is this train rave?
Oh my God.
And he'll show that to me and want me to watch it with him. We haven't watched Train Rave in a while though. I asked him about it. I'm like, why haven't we watched the train? And he just, what has he been showing me? It was like Christmas songs, which makes sense. But I'm like, I miss the train. Forget the train.
You're like, it's January. Like when you come back, you're like, it's January now.
I know, time for the train. Where's my train rave?
No more Christmas.
It is so weird. This train is like Barbie. It has so many jobs. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of it. I don't know if it's copyrighted. But he's like swimming underwater, and then he's like in a rowboat.
Oh my
And
God.
like, then he's like in a house, like counting families. He's thriving.
He's thriving. So, is there anything recently or in the past couple years that's helped you thrive and feel passionate and reinvigorated, other than helping these children?
Helping these children, but like the big thing, like I said, was going back to school.
Oh.
Because
yeah.
I was an aide for a while, and I love being an aide. It's a great job. But just I always had these intentions to go back to school, but you know, life happens. Being an adult happens, and it seems so daunting. Like, I'm 35 to go back to school in your 30s.
Yeah.
And just the pandemic put a lot of things in perspective. Just like, hey, I'm not happy with where I'm at. Like, life is scary now. I need something. So, you know, going back to school, finally, I've been talking about it for years. You can attest to that. I started talking about this like 7 years ago. I'm going to go to school, and I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm going to be great at it. And just sitting and waiting because I was too scared to do it for 5 years.
Yeah.
So to, you know, finally be doing that and to say, you know, I'm not quite where I want to be in life, but I'm on my way finally. And that feels really good, even though it has been hard. Like, your first year of teaching is not easy, especially, like I said, well, I'm still taking my classes. I'm still in my master's program. Mm-hmm. It's hard, and it's hard to balance, you know, it is a high pressure job. It is a job that's physically and mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
But just, you know, to be on my way and to finally start seeing my life form in a way where I've wanted it to form, where I feel like a grown-up. That sounds dumb, but like I feel like a grown-up, and you know, I can take care of myself, and
Yeah. I mean, that's like just what everybody hopes for too, is to have the life that they want. And I think that's amazing that you're finally seeing that happen for yourself. You're like, oh, this is what I've been wanting, and I finally got it.
and to form a vision of what I was wanting. Just because, like I said at the beginning, I came out of school thinking my life would look one way, and it did not.
Yeah.
And that was so hard to be like, what the heck do I do now? Where do I go? And I think it's pretty common, like when you're in your 30s, you're supposed to know, or that's what people tell you. And I think a lot of people don't know still. I have a lot of friends who just do their jobs because they've been doing it for 10, 15 years now. And that's the only thing they feel like they know and they can do, but they don't enjoy it. And it is scary taking these steps. It is scary, you know, taking back. I'm not even thinking about the giant loan to go back to school. Well, that's a problem for future me. Yeah. But it is scary, and to see it, you know, working out, and to feel it working out, and to have found something I'm passionate about, and to finally take the steps to do it.
Yeah. I love that.
And it's okay to do it later in life. People do it a lot later than me.
Yeah.
But it is hard changing your path at this point.
Yes. I mean, I think it's just like society has made us feel like it's hard because they've put so much pressure on us to be like, you should have figured it out by now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with like, I interviewed a musician, Kishibashi. I don't know if you know him, but he was saying that in around our age, because we're both 35, and he's 40. Like outing everybody's age.
I know, we're like, let's just tell everyone.
Arthur's 7.
Are you? Oh my goodness.
King Arthur is gonna be.
He's asleep.
I think he is turning 7.
God, you're a big boy.
Yeah. You are a big boy.
He's cat donated right now.
But, I also just noticed that is just so much more common with our generation, and like maybe it's just like something that's always happened. I don't know. But there is like a group of people that hit our 30s and are just like, what is this? What have I been working towards? Is this really the life I want to lead? Like, really reevaluating where we are and then being able to adjust from that. So I don't want you to feel alone in that, or like, I'm glad you were able to get over your fear of like feeling that way of, I should have had this figured out by now. And then you went back to school and you were able to, follow your passions.
Yeah, it's hard to admit like you did something wrong. And it's not even doing something wrong. It's just following a path that didn't work out, or, I hope we all grow as people. So something you started when you're 20 may not be who you are when you're 35.
Yeah.
Oh my God, if I was who I was at 20.
Ooh, yeah. If I was still who I was at 20, oof.
Yikes, forever.
Wow. But at the same time, it's also that thing of like, it's also great because I don't think anybody should feel scared going for what they initially want. And I think it's great when you go for it. And then when you find out like, oh, this isn't for me, it's not a waste of time. It's just like hey, you would have regretted it if you didn't try it out at that moment. And it's great that you did it, found out that's not like the right way for you. And then you just have to pivot and figure out where you're going to go.
100%. I have no regrets about going to school for art. As much as I said, I don't use it right now. There's so many experiences and so many things I learned.
Yeah.
And even like, I do think it's relevant to what I do now. Just with a lot of my students, with autism, there's not, it looks so different. It's a spectrum.
Yeah. Everything
looks different. So one approach that works with one student definitely won't work with another. It can have the complete opposite effects. And I think with art school, we're taught to think more creatively. Yeah. We spend all this time thinking out of the box. It's not just like the answer to A is B.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I'm really good at, is like creative problem solving, like re-looking at things, trying things, not having any shame, just being the weird artist. I was talking to my sister about that because I was telling her about some of my approaches. We can relate a lot since we do the same thing. And she'll say that. She's like, it's great. You have no shame. I think I mentioned I had one student who just disrobes in classroom. And obviously that's really disruptive to have a naked teenage boy in the middle of your room.
Yeah.
And that's not something you can do. You do that in public, you go to jail.
Yeah.
So we're trying all these things to get him dressed, and it doesn't work. So I found for a while the best thing was to distract him. I'd put on Just Dance videos and dance to One Direction.
Oh my God.
Well, an aide would go up behind him and put his underwear back on. They were just like, if someone were to walk in the room right now. Like, obviously this is not done in front of the other students,
Oh, really?
We can't have a naked student in front of them. So we take him to another area. I'm very lucky in that my classroom is almost divided in two. There's double doors in the middle of the classroom. So, if someone's not being appropriate for other students to be around, we'll kind of take them all to one side of the room or the other.
Yeah.
So if something's dangerous is going on, I'm very lucky. I have a great classroom setup.
Yeah.
So that was happening a lot when we were not wearing clothes in school. He would be all alone in the one side, and then just me being like, come on, sing with me. You got to get your pants on to sing with me. Like, if someone's walking by and they hear that conversation, put your pants on so we can dance, because we can't dance without pants. Or I'm just like, look at me, I'm having fun, and I'm dancing because I'm wearing my clothes. Yeah. I'm ready to dance. Miss Jen has on her shirt. She has on her socks. She has on her pants. She's ready for One Direction.
Oh my gosh.
The things you say, and you're just like, wow.
Yeah. Amazing. In the vein of funsies, is there a random animal fact you can tell me?
Oh, I don't want to steal yours. She was telling me a random animal fact.
Who?
You told me about the platypuses.
Oh, yeah.
I can't use that one. That's not fun.
No, do it. Do it.
No, I'm trying to... Platypus use their tails as hands.
Ooh.
You told me this one. Don't I surprised? She's like, you should use this when I ask you. And I'm like, nah, that's cheating.
Okay, I feel like, because I can give some animal facts too. So giraffes, they have the biggest heart of land mammals.
Oh, that's sweet.
Is it of land mammals? I think it is. But they have like such a huge heart because of how long their necks are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like they have to pump
that. Wow.
Pump that blood up to the
That's
brain.
amazing. I didn't even think about that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I watched so many animal things as a kid and I'm disappointed in myself that I can't think of one.
Honestly, it's like, I feel like we have to jog our memories because I'm also bad about that. But I feel like this is more recently. Like, as a kid, I don't remember too much.
As a kid, all I did was watch, like, animal shows.
Aw.
Just be like, more animals, all animals, and I don't remember anything.
You just remembered seeing how beautiful they are.
Yeah, and they were so beautiful and majestic. Ooh.
As part of the show, I'd like to pull out a tarot card for the episode because who knows, maybe you'll need to hear it today.
Oh, let's see.
Boop, boop, boop. All right, so I'm going to shuffle the cards. I'm using my Universal Fantasy Tarot that I really enjoy. And basically, you just tell me when to stop shuffling.
Stop.
Okay. Then if you can pick a card.
This one.
Okay, so Temperance number 14. Can you describe the card to the mic?
There is a fairy woman and she has, her wings look like they're kind of made out of water. And she is sitting on a flower that it has a waterfall coming out of it into another flower. And there's like a sunflower in the back. And the center of it kind of looks like a sun, but like metal.
Ooh, let me see.
A sunflower that looks like a sun.
Oh,
Wow,
yeah,
I'm really
yeah.
descriptive. But it looks like a metal sun.
Yeah.
It's not like an ordinary sunflower.
Yeah.
Isn't temperance about like patience? Oh, this is one I never get.
Really?
I never get temperance. Back when I would do tarot cards, I never see this one.
Wait, how long ago did you do tarot?
It's been a really long time though.
Then
Maybe things have changed.
I think so.
Wow. I used to get the Hermit all the time. It made sense at the time.
Yeah.
That's when my life was really like changing. So it was a lot of like, you need to reflect and be by yourself. And that's when I was like, you do need to be by yourself. And that's where I made the revelations that I've talked about today about, life and jobs and what I want to be passionate about. So the Hermit helped.
Yeah. But now we have Temperance that you said you'd never get.
Yeah. It's been a while though.
So Temperance says, patience and perseverance are the keys to solving many problems. There is a time to struggle and a time to step back and wait. The wise person knows when to moderate the impulse to rush in.
This is an interesting one for me. I'm surprised I don't get this more.
Yeah.
I guess, like I said, it's been like 4 or 5 years. I got into it a few years ago, but haven't really done it much recently.
Yeah. And I really feel like that applies because, your job is working with children that need a lot of patience and perseverance. So
the part about not rushing in though and waiting is interesting. Just with my work and stuff, I feel and maybe it would be good, like I said, where the reasons why behaviors are happening aren't apparent. So maybe sometimes it is better to sit back and watch to try to figure things out instead of rushing in. But then I feel like someone would get their nose broken.
Yeah, you can't like sit back too long, be like, what is...
Wow, that boy is out of his desk and walking across my classroom. Where's he gonna go? And then you just leave out the front door, and then you're like, oh my God.
You're like, I'm just gonna keep waiting. I'm not gonna rush into this.
No, you rush. Maybe it means for other life. This doesn't have to be my classroom. Just, wow, let's watch them. Look at them all go. All the kids are slowly filing out of the room, and I'm just like, wow, we're all going out to the world.
You like hear screaming outside as there's like some chaos going on. You're like, wow.
Someone's pulling each other's hair. Wow, we're capable of so many things. How many aides are you sending to urgent care today? None.
Oh my gosh.
Can I show this to my students?
Oh my god.
Our impulse control is something we work on. Like, I'm mad that you're not playing with me. I'm going to throw an iPad at your stomach. So I think maybe that's a good lesson. I'll just have this hanging on my wall like temperance.
Patience.
Think about what you're doing. That is something I stress a lot in my room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was that the best course of action? Let's stop and think. What are we going to do about this? Because that's not it right now.
Yeah. I do wonder, because you did mention that in the sunflower there is money. You felt
I said metal.
Oh, metal.
It looks like a metal, like a pendant or something. I don't really know why that's there.
Yeah. I guess, like, I just went to... sorry. I just went to money, and I also wonder if maybe there is, like, with the patience, with maybe your education, that will cause... I guess not to be like a financial reward, but some kind of like reward from
It's
it.
definitely not going to be financial because I chose to be a teacher. Pay your teachers more.
But I do feel like you'll get some more fulfillment out of probably your education.
Maybe someone will give me a sunflower medal.
Oh my gosh. Maybe one of the students will give you a medal. So, but yeah, I think that's a good card to have and to end on.
That is.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for being here and talking with me. And sadly, we are at the end. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy this podcast, please follow or subscribe. You can also follow Tired and Thriving on Instagram at Tired and Thriving, all one word. There you can reach out, give feedback, or maybe let me know how you've been uniquely thriving. You can also reach out through email at tiredandthriving@gmail.com. Thank you again, and I hope you all have a thriving week. See you next time.